Hi. So you might wonder what all this stuff is behind me. And I thought, well, I was looking for a background. I thought we're going on an AI adventure this week. Last week, we started the adventure kind of taking baby steps with Chat GPT. A ton of fun in Zoom with that. We learned a lot of things. I think some of the insights that came out were things like, well, it doesn't always give you what you think it ought to give you. It gives you something, but you got to validate it. And when we get to a certain part in this assignment that I'm going to talk about, I'll give you a great example of that because it was crazy. I'm not even sure it saved me any time. It probably took me longer to use Chat GPT on a couple of things than it did if I would have just done it myself. However, that's neither here nor there. This week, we're going to actually explore several other categories of AI. And you might be wondering, like, well, it's an ethics class. I get it. When are we going to talk about ethics? All of that is woven in, but I firmly believe that you got to use the technology to be in a position to think about the technology. Like if you don't actually know what it can do and what the boundaries are and what the parameters are, and try some things, how can you answer the question, is this an ethical tech? Or are there ethical uses for this? Or are there unethical uses for that? So you have to put your hands on the tech. And that's what we're going to do this week. And then next week, we're going to jump into hitting some of these hard ethical questions based on your experience and based on other things that you find out. So let's get started. Let me just jump into a screen share. And this is a rather lengthy slideshow because it has a lot of resources in it for you to work through. But pretty much what I've discovered is that exploring AI is really an exercise in asking good questions. And we'll find out what that means. So, of course, there's some things to consider as we begin this project, and you're going to notice a theme. And you might ask me, why am I using this theme? Hopefully, I'll remember to loop back to that at the end. So our overview here is I've got several categories of AI tools, audio editing, video editing, several different categories. And I've got some things listed in each category, and you're going to explore a couple of these. You're going to pick what you want to explore because AI is not going anywhere. And we might as well learn how to use it. It's already here. Like if you use Grammarly in your Google Docs or anywhere, if you use Siri or any of the virtual assistants, I mean, there's just so many places where AI is already prevalent that let's see what we can learn about that by exploring. So we've got a couple of outcomes, and always I like to push people towards these higher level outcomes. And I put these here so that you have a framework for what I'm looking for. And you're going to evaluate, analyze, and synthesize what you learn this week. This is a task list, and at every juncture along the way in the slideshow, I've got a back to task list link, like at the main headings, so you can jump back here. So you don't necessarily need to do these in order, although it's kind of helpful if you do. But these links will jump you back and forth if you want to reference something. So as we did before, create a Google Doc. This section here is always the same. Always include a header, always share it with me, and set general access to anyone can view. Always use the document title that I put there because that just helps organize all of your notes. And I have this little pencil icon. So we're going to try this out. If you see a pencil, that's someplace you should stop and document what you're doing or document the question. That's just a visual cue. I love visual cues. So our first part, ask good questions. And you notice it says back to task list. That's what I'm talking about. So on these header title slides, there'll be a back to task list that'll jump you back. So I've got, there's like a million resources out there, but I picked 4 good resources. Well, I think they're pretty good resources about how to ask good questions. Now, this doesn't just apply to working with artificial intelligence, of course. This applies to all sorts of things. So the interesting thing about this slide is it's going to give you, there's these 4 articles, one or two have a video associated with them. And, at least glance over them and make a list of useful tips that you found that you think might be helpful. And then try to find a recent resource that talks about this subject, something I don't already have here, something that we can add into the class body of knowledge. And so the art of asking right questions, this is a really interesting one because it's got a video. So you just watch the video if you want to, but the article kind of outlines some of the main things they talk about. How to ask the right questions to get the most out of your AI conversations. Oh man, I can't even tell you how critical this is, because if you don't ask the right question, it gives you all kinds of weird stuff. How to create effective prompts for AI image generation specifically. This is an article, has some really, really good tips for that, because we're going to play with an AI image generation software called Midjourney right in Discord. So you don't even have to go anywhere else. It's already in Discord. And then we have the ultimate Midjourney prompt engineering video. This one's a little bit long, but this guy really goes into detail and he shows examples, and it's actually pretty good. You don't have to watch the whole thing or watch it at double speed. He's got a table of contents thing in the video description. So if you go there, you can jump to different parts. So you're going to look at this piece about asking good questions. And then I put this, it's a podcast. You can find it in a couple of different places: Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts. New York Times has a transcript, has the article that they talk about. Usually you can get a couple of New York Times articles for free. If you can't access it, let me know, because I have a subscription, and just let me know. And then LinkedIn actually has, on the interviewer's LinkedIn page, he's got a kind of a bullet point list of what they cover in here. But this podcast is a little over an hour long. Put it on while you're listening to something else, but listen to the last 15 minutes is like critical. I mean, listen to the whole thing, because he talks about how AI works and about, this experiment that he did and how it kind of got really weird. And the AI was kind of making a pass at him, it looked like, but it's an AI. So what does that even mean, right? Anyhow, and he talks about prompt engineering and some other interesting things. I think you'll find it a really useful podcast to listen to. So the next thing you're going to do is select your sites. Now, this is the biggest section of this slideshow, because I broke it down into categories. So you'll see. And I had ChatGPT generate the list. So I said something, I should have put my question here. I said, give me a list of AI applications that students can try out and categorize it, organize it by categories. That's what I did. So all I'm going to say is ChatGPT can only pull from pre-2021 data. And I actually had to vet out most of the things it said and verify, and some of them didn't work. Like, they're just not there. So I tried to put in a few extra ones. But here's your strategy for this section. Here's what I would do. Look over all the categories, glance over, get an idea of what's there. Choose 2 categories that interest you, and then pick a site mentioned in the category that interests you. And then before you do much at the site, go to the next sections. Go to the explore and evaluate sections. Look at the create and submit section. That way you know what kind of questions to frame your experience with. All right. So choose your sites and then look over these sections, and then just go play with it. And honestly, I'm not hard over on you picking sites directly from this list that follows. If you have something else that you're dying to try out, or that you came across that fits into one of these categories, or even fits into some other category, do it, use it. Just make sure that you list out what it is. And on your document, keep track of all this information that you're finding as you're going through the site. So use the document. You're going to share the document with me. This is going to be your field book, I guess. If you were doing science, this would be your lab book or your field book if you're out in the field. So that's my strategy. So I'm just going to go through these quickly just to give you the categories. Natural language processing, so ChatGPT would fit into that. Recommender systems. So you know how you get on like YouTube and it says, do you want to watch this next video, right? Or you get on Amazon, product recommendations, and it says, hey, because you looked at this, you're going to look at these other ones. Computer vision, facial recognition, this Kairos, Look up Kairos facial recognition, because if you look up Kairos, tons of stuff will come up. So look up Kairos facial recognition. It says it's available for public use. A lot of these sites might have a paid version and a free version, but even if you can't get in, like if you're really interested in autonomous drones, but you don't have that drone, you might be able to look at their site and find out how they get their information and how it works, and respond to the questions. So go with what you're really interested in. Don't go pay for anything. Like most of these I checked out have free versions. Healthcare, medical diagnosis. I've heard of this Skin Vision one actually, and there's probably other apps that use AI to detect. And I've actually read that, I don't know what it's called, like general practitioner entry level medicine. Like if you go in for strep throat, this type of scanning AI diagnosis can scan, they put it down, not down your throat, you open your mouth and they say, oh, hey, that's strep throat based on what it sees. Drug information, super handy, because if you've ever had like medication and you put it in some other container and you forget what it is. Anyhow, these are a couple of healthcare sites. I'm sure that there are lots of others. Video manipulation. Oh my goodness, deep fakes. Those are going to be fun. If you do one of these ones, please make one and include the link or somehow include it in your Google Doc. I don't know how they output. So if you include a link to it, upload it to YouTube, something, or Google Drive. Let us see what you did, because that'll be fantastic. Video editing, even like iMovie and Filmora. I use Filmora on my Mac, have AI algorithms that help automate some of the tasks. Audio generation, same thing. If you create something on any of these, document it, document screen shares, document with links to video or audio. That way you can keep track of what you worked on. And these are two music powered, AI powered music creation tools. And then text to speech, even plain old Google Docs and slides. If you go into the tools menu, they've got text to speech, voice type tools. OpenAI, which is ChatGPT's parent company, has something called Whisper that I haven't tried. So if you try it out, I'm curious to know how it works. Virtual assistants. Oh my gosh, we all have phones and all our phones have virtual assistants, right? Whether it's, Alexa, Siri, Google, there's a whole bunch of other ones, that you could just have sitting in your house. Those are all, very helpful AI tools. Image creation. So Dolly's been around. That's another OpenAI project. Art Breeder is one that I haven't played with. There's a bunch of apps out now. Lens is one that I use to create my profile picture that is here in Zoom. Here's a couple of more image editing options. Pixlr and Photor, sorry, are two that I've used that, but I didn't realize they used AI algorithms behind them. And of course, Adobe Photoshop and Lightroom. I think there's apps for all of those. So here we're going to take a little sidebar. Okay, Midjourney. So I mentioned Midjourney earlier. So it's kind of 2A because it's a category. But what I want you to do is pick two things out of those categories and then also do Midjourney. And here's why. This is a very interesting program. And as we talked about last week, Allison Sparkle, as you probably discovered, was illustrated by Midjourney. And so let's take a look at that. Let's see what that's all about. So what I do is I have a link to join the server. It's in Discord. So when you join the server, and it's a huge server, so you have to be patient because sometimes there's some lag because there's so many people playing with this right now. When you join the server, you're automatically put into a trial subscription. You get about 25 iterations, 25 requests, give or take. And if you want to know where you're at, I should have put this on the slide, you do a /info, INFO, and that'll give you back some statistics. Nobody else can see that but you. /info. It gives you back the stats, lets you know where you're at. So I think I have like 10 more, although I used a bunch to make this video. So we'll see. And then there's a link to the quick start guide, because you can generate something, but then you can iterate on your generations. And that will tell you how to do that. So I give an example here. I made a little video. And what I want you to do, and it's only like 5 minutes. So this is something I made on my desktop. look at these, like it hit me after I pulled down all the pictures. I did 3 different versions that they had something in common, and it made me wonder, what does that mean? So you look at my prompts, look at the images, see what you think. But just play this. I'll do a little quick blurb here. There's no audio really on it. Well, I had narrated a little bit, but I'm going to turn off the narration for right now. So I do narrate it. But if I jump forward, you're going to see, yeah, you're going to see how it just moves. Just this is how this is how the channel works. So I think you'll find that a little bit interesting. And I give you a really brief, like, here's how to use this, and here's how to find your images. So this is the first set of images I generated. This is my prompt, /imagine. That's a great prompt, right? Imagine, I said, a college student trying to understand how Midjourney works in a hyper-realistic format. And I actually got the format for my prompt from one of those articles I asked you to read. I'm really good at ChatGPT prompts. I'm not as good at image editing prompts. So that's something I'm going to work on. So anyhow, and then I break out the pictures in a little more depth. It's a little bit weird. So I tried again. I give version 2. And I got more specific. An older college student looking at their computer trying to understand how AI works, realistic. And this is what I came up with. I don't know if those guys are older than what? I guess they're older than middle schoolers. But these guys are really old. I didn't really expect them to be quite that old. But some really interesting images. And this is what Midjourney imagines when it reads your prompt. So it gives you back what it imagines. So I tried it again, photorealistic, just same prompt, different style. I kind of actually like this one. Whoops, let me back up one. This guy up in the corner is sort of a cyborgy guy. He's got this thing on his head. Anyhow, interesting. So you're going to go play with it and see what you come up with. Now, that's the biggest part of the whole project. This next part, update the list. Now, part of the problem, I mentioned that ChatGPT's list was pre-2021, and there's been an explosion of sites. Okay. So find at least 1 or 2 more, like don't go crazy, but find a couple newer than 2021 that are AI powered applications or websites. And then use those, respond to the explore and evaluation questions also for those sites. So that gives you now 4 sites. So you got 2 from the list, you've got Midjourney, and then you've got 1 that you pick yourself. So what is all this exploring? What are we supposed to look at? What questions do we ask? So again, that's what I just said. 2 from the category list, 1 from Midjourney, 1 or 2 from your update list. Update the list. So here's what I want you to do. When you're looking at the site, I want you to keep in mind these questions. What is the purpose of the site or the application? What are the main features? Where does it get its data? What kind of data does it use? And then how does the site use AI? There might be a frequently asked questions on the site. You might have to go just do a search and find out. You know what? Bing right now, I didn't put that up there as an option, but Bing is running ChatGPT underneath its search algorithm. And I haven't had a chance to play with that yet. So that might be interesting to compare what results you get from Bing and Google, because Google is now playing catch up. So anyhow, that's your exploration questions. Keep track of that in your Google Docs. And then you're going to jump into the experiment and evaluate. So first I want you to look at, like, who are these people? How are they funded? Where do they come from? What's the purpose? All that stuff. And then you're going to play. So I want you to give it, I found this graphic. I really like it. Oh, you're going to give it a rating. This is like a review, right? So is it 1 star, 5 stars, but you have to justify your rating. And there's 5 criteria. So I've got 2 on this slide. Accuracy. And some of these things you'll be able to do better than others. So don't feel like you have to give like a 5-page review. However, I do want you to back it up. If you say, well, the site's really accurate, how do you know that? Did you validate the information somewhere else? Or if you say the site seems to be unbiased, I will give you a hint on that Midjourney photo set. Definite bias came through, one that I did not put into the prompt. And so just document that. Like whatever you think, give some evidence for why you think it. Functionality, does it perform well? Does it lag? Does it do what you need it to do? Is it easy to use? And then user interface. This is also, how for you coming to it for the first time, were you able to find what you needed to find? Could you get help if you needed help? Is it intuitive? Is it visually appealing? Is it confusing and cluttered? Like just give some information about what it's like to be on the site. Accessibility. Now, this is an interesting one. And unless you have an accessibility need, you might not even know what to look for. But as best you can, see if the site determines alternative formats or assistive technologies so that everybody, like screen reading or, all kinds of things, making the words on the page larger. There's several assistive technologies that come into play. And then privacy. Oh, here's a big one. Because every time you use one of these, you're putting in some information. What does it do with that? How does it handle user privacy? How does it handle private? How does it handle, like, where to get the data set from? Does it have permission to use all the images it scraped and all the text it scraped? Like, how does it handle privacy? There should be a privacy policy somewhere on the site. Now we're almost at the end, and you're thinking, thank goodness. So now what do we do with all of this? So you've got your Google Doc. It's kind of your research lab journal, your lab book. You're keeping track of all the things you're learning and thinking. Put down observations, put down ideas that generate, put down other resources you find. Keep that all in your Google Doc. Make your doc nice and neat and easy to share, or easy to read, easy to follow. That'll be helpful. And then you're going to come here and create and share. So what are you going to create and how are you going to share it? So you're going to create a product review video. So you're going to pick one of those sites. So you looked at least 4. Hopefully they're ones you found interesting. You're going to pick one, the one you like the best. And you're going to create a product review video where you're going to share what are the features, like share the things you learned about it. Pretend it's maybe a sales video and you're trying to convince somebody this would be really interesting to use. Look at the explore phase, what you found out, and the evaluation. The length only has to be 5 to 10 minutes. Please don't make it longer than 10 minutes. Okay. So should be at least 5, but not longer than 10. Include a demonstration of how it works. So that little video I did for Midjourney, that's a demonstration of how it works. So these are my suggested steps. Plan your video, record and upload your video, submit and share your video. So you're going to plan it out. Don't just like open up the screen and start talking. If you're screen sharing different things, have your web browser open, have the tabs lined up so you can just click to the tab. So whatever it is you're going to show or talk about, make an outline of your topics, practice it a few times, make sure you're coming in within the time limit. Plus it'll go a little smoother. Record and upload. This is really similar to what you did on your introduction video. So record it, narrate it. Don't just click through and do, click through videos because nobody knows what's happening in those videos. Okay. So zoom in where you can, have your voice, preferably have your face on the screen. You can do it like I'm doing here in Zoom. This is my favorite place to record. Upload it to YouTube or Google Drive. If you need a refresher, go back to the introduction video instructions in week 1. And make sure your share settings are so that anyone with a link is a viewer, not just anyone at VVC, anyone with the link is a viewer. If you have a problem with that, please, please, please let me know because I might have to contact somebody and get that fixed. And then you're going to share and submit. So you're going to post the video to your team channel. Don't just throw a link in, please. Start it off with the tag AI Explorer. Don't put name of site. Put AI Explorer, Midjourney or whatever. Don't use Midjourney though, because everybody's using that one or everybody's doing that one. Use one that you don't think somebody else has done. AI Explore, the name of the actual site that you're reviewing. And then include just a brief summary, throw a paragraph in there, like what's your overall, here's the tech, here's what it does, here's what I think type of thing. Never put in just a blank link. You're also going to share your video in your Google Notes document with me as explained in a previous thing. So what do you talk about? See last slide for question suggestions. I just threw up some questions here. These aren't all inclusive and you don't have to talk about all of them. It'll just give you an idea of what's available, some things you can talk about. So let me back up really quick. I'm going to back up, and I mentioned that I was using this particular template for a reason. I came across it and I thought, this is really interesting. Not all the slides have it, but you'll notice that quite a few of the slides have people, especially all the header slides, not any of these slides. And they show different people from all walks of life. And there's a reason for that. AI, one of the questions in the podcast that I wanted you to do, and I'm going to stop sharing now. One of the questions in that podcast that's on Spotify and Google and iTunes and everywhere, towards the end, he talks about, in an age of AI, what does it mean to be human? If an AI can crank out images and crank out video and do text and do all these things, write code, do all this stuff, what is it that we do that we are uniquely human and able to do that the computer can't? That's going to be the question that we wrestle with, I think, as we go through using artificial intelligence and as it explodes and expands. So put that kind of in the back of the hopper as you're going through all of these, and think about, like, what could I personally contribute that an AI can't? There's a lot of stuff, believe me. Anyhow, I think this is going to be an interesting assignment. It's going to require some analysis on your part, a little bit of work. Don't spend 100 years, investigating something. Do the best you can do. Set yourself a time limit, maybe an hour per site or something, and see what you can see, and then move on to the next one. I think you're going to have fun. I know I'm going to have fun looking at it.